If they talk like this, they're an avoidant. One of the most confusing things in relationships is trying to figure out whether someone truly wants closeness with you or if they're just wired to keep you at arm's length. Avoidance can be especially tricky because on the surface they often seem independent, mysterious, and even attractive in their distance. But listen closely to their words and you'll start to notice patterns. If they talk like this, they're probably an avoidant. And understanding these signs will save you years of heartbreak, confusion, and chasing someone who can't give you the intimacy you're craving. The first way avoidants talk is through distancing language. You'll hear things like, I just need a lot of space, or I'm not really the relationship type. Sometimes they'll phrase it as, I'm too busy right now, or I just don't have time for something serious. On the surface, these phrases sound reasonable. Everyone values their freedom, but avoidants use them repeatedly as shields against intimacy. It's not about being busy. It's about creating emotional distance before things get too close. When you hear this type of language over and over again, it's not a scheduling issue. It's a psychological wall. Another way avoidants reveal themselves is through future avoidant speech. Instead of talking about long-term plans, they keep everything temporary. They might say things like, let's just see where this goes, or I don't like to plan too far ahead. They avoid talking about commitment, labels, or the future of the relationship. If you ask where things are heading, they'll give vague answers like, I'm just going with the flow. While this can sound carefree or relaxed, it's actually an avoidance strategy to keep from being pinned down. For them, the future feels like a trap, so they push everything into the present moment. A third clue is when they speak in defensive independence. Phrases like, I don't need anyone, or I'm fine on my own, are classic avoidant markers. They'll often remind you, subtly or directly, that they're self-sufficient. While independence is healthy, the way avoidants talk about it often carries a sharp edge, almost like a warning. Don't expect me to rely on you, and don't expect me to let you rely on me. This defensive independence is designed to keep emotional dependency out of the picture. When you hear it enough times, you'll notice it's less about pride and more about fear of needing someone. Another telltale sign is how they talk during conflict. Avoidants often use shutdown language such as, I don't want to talk about it, or why do we have to make everything so emotional? They may even say things like, you're overreacting, or you're too sensitive. This is their way of dodging intimacy in emotional moments. Instead of meeting you in vulnerability, they retreat, shut the door, or minimize your feelings. When words become walls instead of bridges, you're likely dealing with avoidant communication. They also talk in ways that minimize attachment. If you hear things like, relationships always end, or love never lasts, pay attention. These aren't just random statements, they're glimpses into their belief system. Avoidants often carry deep-seated narratives that love is risky, painful, or destined to fail. By repeating these ideas, they preemptively protect themselves from disappointment. It's like saying, if I don't believe in forever, I won't be hurt when forever doesn't happen. But in reality, it's self-sabotage, and it keeps them from experiencing genuine closeness. Another avoidant pattern is the backhanded compliment. They might say things like, you're amazing, but I'm just not ready. Or, I really like you, but I'm not in the right place for commitment. On the surface, it sounds kind, even considerate. But notice the structure. It always gives with one hand and takes away with the other. These statements keep you hooked with validation while also creating distance. It's a clever way of keeping you around without having to fully show up. If you hear a lot of but statements, that's a strong avoidance signal. Avoidants also reveal themselves when talking about the past. Listen for detachment in their stories. They may say, I've never really been in love, or I don't let people get too close. Sometimes they'll describe past relationships with emotional flatness, like, it ended, and that's just how it is. This detachment is a clue. They've trained themselves to disconnect from emotional depth. While others might tell stories with passion, nostalgia, or pain, avoidants often speak as if their past doesn't touch them. That detachment isn't strength, it's avoidance. When it comes to intimacy, avoidants often use humor or deflection. If you tell them, I really like you, they might respond with a joke, a laugh, or a casual, "You're funny." If you try to get deeper and say, "I feel close to you," they might change the subject or distract with sarcasm. These tactics are not random. They're protective shields. For an avoidant, intimacy feels overwhelming, so they use words to redirect the energy. If every serious moment turns into a joke or silence, you're probably dealing with an avoidant. Another key phrase avoidants use is, "I don't want to hurt you." At first it sounds noble, even compassionate, but often what they mean is, "I can't give you what you want, so I'm keeping my distance." This phrase is their way of managing your expectations while protecting themselves from guilt. It's not always malicious, it's fear-driven. They don't want to carry the responsibility of your feelings, so they create distance preemptively. It's a soft rejection that keeps you around while lowering your hope. You'll also notice avoidants tend to use conditional language. They say things like, "Maybe if things were different," or "If only I was in the right place in my life." Conditional language is a hallmark of avoidance. It leaves the door open just enough to keep you wondering, but never wide enough for true commitment. This uncertainty isn't accidental. It keeps them safe from closeness while keeping you attached through hope. And then, perhaps the most painful avoidant phrase, "I don't feel what you feel." Sometimes it comes out bluntly, other times more subtly, like, "I don't know if I love you the same way." These words cut deep, but they reveal the avoidant's core fear. That intimacy requires them to match your depth, and they can't or won't go there. Instead of risking vulnerability, they pull away with words that create permanent distance. When you hear this, it's not that they feel nothing. It's that they're terrified of feeling too much. Now here's the important part. Just because someone talks like this doesn't mean they don't care about you. Avoidants often do feel love, sometimes deeply, but their language exposes the battle inside them, the part of them that craves closeness and the part that fears it. When you recognize these speech patterns, you're not just decoding words, you're seeing their attachment wounds in action. This awareness allows you to make choices. Do you keep chasing, or do you step back and let them face their fear? The truth is, you can't argue someone out of being avoidant. You can't convince them with words because their words are already their defense system. But you can recognize the signs early and decide how much you're willing to give. If you want closeness, don't ignore the red flags. If they constantly talk in ways that distance, deflect, or deny intimacy, they're showing you their attachment style. Believe them. At the end of the day, avoidants reveal themselves not just in what they do, but in what they say. Their words tell the story of their fears, their walls, and their limits. And if you're wise enough to listen, not just to the charm, but to the underlying patterns, you'll know exactly who you're dealing with. If they talk like this, they're an avoidant. And the sooner you recognize it, the sooner you can decide whether this is someone you want to keep waiting for or someone you need to walk away from so you can find the love that meets you fully.